welcome back to New Nanny Workshop. Now, some time ago I started to put together a wooden height chart for my granddaughter. She's going to be 2 on the 22nd of June this year, and I figured that her parents would want some way to be able to start measuring her height and actually keeping a record of that. Now, I know most people make marks on one of the door jambs in their house or something of that ilk, but there's an outside chance that they won't be staying in their house very long, and I figured if they started making marks now, they'd only have to cover them up when they left. So if they've got something along these lines, at least they'll be able to take it with them when they go. Not a massive material list for this project. Basically 3 foot length of a 120mm pine board at 3/4 of an inch, and I rounded off the ends, which there's a variety of ways you can do that, and I'm pretty sure I don't need to explain that to you. And then along the left hand edge as it stands upright, I marked a series of marks at 1 inch intervals, making the 1 foot marks slightly longer and making the 6 inch marks somewhere in between the two in order to be able to distinguish them. And then what I did was use a triangular needle file to plough out where those marks were, to give them a bit of relief. And initially what I tried to do was to paint those by hand. So I got some black paint and tried to actually paint in the grooves, and it was very fiddly, very fiddly, and it wasn't working out the way I expected it to. The paint was getting everywhere. I don't have particularly steady hands for that sort of thing, and so I painted the face of the board white, and then routed using a letter template Amelia's name on it. And the bits may not have been particularly sharp, because although the outlines of the letters were fine, the actual ploughed out part had an awful lot of machine marks in it that I was finding I was having trouble sanding out. My next decision then was to mask off part of the board and the lettering so that I could spray paint that section of the board, with the idea that I could sand the top of it off and just leave the spray paint in the grooves that I'd made. Excuse the quality of the video on the next section. I was using some of the equipment that I had laying about around the house to test what was going to be any good for making these videos, and as it turns out, now I'm backtracking, that was the only piece of equipment that had any footage of me sanding out those letters. Unfortunate, but that's how it goes. Once I'd sanded the letters out, there was still some pitting, so I went back and refilled again with a view to sanding them out again. Unfortunately, when I came to put a stain on the board again afterwards, those places where I'd refilled were a slightly different colour, which meant I couldn't just leave it like that. So I chose some blue stain and overpainted the letters by hand, and that actually worked out quite nicely, as you'll see in the next photo. I rounded over the edges of the board. I added some decals that I made by hand, and then sealed everything in with high gloss yacht varnish. And this is what those decals I talked about look like. They're basically printed acetate with double-sided tape attached to the board. When you varnish over the top, it basically seals them to the board. I then added some small bumblebees that I bought online using CA glue and an accelerator, and this is what the final product looks like. I don't pretend to be a craftsman by any stretch of the imagination, but sometimes it's just about the fact that you made it yourself, particularly when it's a gift for someone. So a fairly straightforward project. It's not going to stretch anyone particularly, but it's the thought that counts. It's Friday today, and Amelia's birthday is Monday. Hopefully by Sunday I will know one way or another whether she likes it or not, and whether her parents are happy about it. That's my son and his girlfriend. And if this has interested you, or you feel you want to do something similar, then feel free to like and subscribe. If you want to leave a comment, I read all of them. If you want any advice or any further clarification about how I did any of this, then I'm quite happy to do that. Let's get into a dialogue, and I'm quite happy to do that. If you choose to make something similar, then feel free to post pictures for me to have a look at, and I'd look forward to that. And I hope this has been of some use to you. Keep well, and I'll see you in the next video.